Hi, my name is Amanda Ziba. Welcome to my channel, Learning with the Word Nerd. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my favorite Newbery books. Now, just like my title name, Word Nerd, suggests, I am super nerdy and I love the Newbery Award because it's like our own nerdy version of the Grammys. It's the time when we celebrate the best of the best in children's literature, and it just makes my nerdy little heart happy. So I'm going to be sharing with you a list of my favorite Newbery winning books of all time. Some of the titles I'm going to share have been written a long time ago, and some of them are more recent. Some of them were my favorites from when I was a child, and some of them I've just discovered and loved as an adult. So here we go, my favorite Newbery books of all time. There are many criteria that the Newbery Committee look at when they're considering a book for the Newbery Award, but there are two major criteria for the award that matter the most. The first is that children are the intended audience. This is the best book written for children, so they need to make sure that it is in fact a kid's book. And the second one is that it is given to an American author. Now, this is probably one of the reasons why Harry Potter has never won the Newbery Award. It's because the author does not live in America. So it has to be given to an American author. If a book meets these two important criteria and stacks up well in the other components of the book that the Newbery Committee look at, it might just win the Newbery Honor Award or the coveted Gold Newbery Medal Award. Let's take a look at some of my favorite Newbery Award winners throughout the years. Make sure you stay tuned to the very end of the video when I share one of my most favorite books of all time. The first book I want to share with you is one of my childhood favorites, and it's called Maniac McGee by Jerry Spinelli. It was published in 1990 and the Newbery Award winner for that year. Here's what the back of the book says. Jeffrey Lionel Maniac McGee might have lived a normal life if a trolley accident hadn't made him an orphan. After living with his unhappy and uptight aunt and uncle for 8 years, he decides to run, and not just run away, but run. And this is where the myth of Maniac McGee begins, as he changes the lives of a racially divided small town with his amazing and legendary feats. So I love this book for a wide variety of reasons, largely because there's a main character named Amanda who's obsessed with books, and so that was very easy for my elementary school self to connect with. But I think that this is a great book to read today because even though it was written 30 years ago, the idea of a racially divided small town is so relevant and so current, and I think that not only will your students fall in love with the character of Maniac, there'll be a lot of great things you can discuss and some conversation starters when you guys read this book together. The second one on my list is from the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler, and this story is about a brother and a sister who run away, but the sister is not about to be like living in a park or on a bench. She is much more sophisticated than that, and so she would like to live in the fanciest place she can imagine, which is the New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art. Here's what it says. Claudia knew that she could never pull off the old-fashioned kind of running away, so she decided not to run from somewhere, but to somewhere. That was how Claudia and her brother Jamie ended up living in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, right in the middle of a mystery that made headlines. So I bought this beautiful, like, felt cover, maybe suede, I don't know, it's super soft, it's beautiful, version from Wild Rumpus Books in Minneapolis. And I love this story because it's so creative. It's these kids who are going to solve a problem, but they're going to do it their way. And the social studies minor history nerd in me loves like all the different exhibits that they go to in the museum. And it's so exciting and fun, I think, for the kids to imagine themselves in Jamie and Claudia's shoes as they are trying to navigate this museum without getting caught, and also solving the very intriguing mystery of the Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. So if you are looking for a great mystery story, something whimsical, but with some history in it as well, I highly recommend the Newbery Award winner from 1967, E.L. Konigsberg's From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. Another oldie but goodie that I have read dozens of times, partially because I taught it when I taught middle school reading, is the 1962 winner, A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. You can see all my post-it notes still in there in this very loved book. And again, even though this book was written a long time ago, it is still so relevant today. We've got a main character who is feeling out of place, like she doesn't fit in, and that like her gifts to the world are just like not comparable to anybody else's. And if that's not describing the average middle school kid, I don't know what is. I feel like everybody can relate to Meg. I also love this book because it's one of the very first that forayed into magical realism, starting in our real world and then shifting into this fantasy, this science fiction of time travel. It's also just a classic story of good versus evil, which we can always use. The powerful reminder that love is stronger than hate. So A Wrinkle in Time, Madeleine L'Engle, 1962 winner. Highly, highly recommend this one. It's one of my ultimate favorites. Next on my list of ultimate favorite Newbery Award winning books is The Tale of Despero by Kate DiCamillo. And if you've never read anything by Kate DiCamillo, I highly recommend starting with this one. You are in for a real treat. My favorite thing about Kate DiCamillo books are the way the language sounds when you read it out loud. She just picks the prettiest words. The Tale of Despero is a story about a very small mouse who falls in love with a princess, and he breaks the ultimate rule in the mouse world, and he speaks to her. And so he's been banished to the dungeon, and surely doom and death await him there, but not Despero. He is brave and courageous, and he finds out while he's down there in the dungeon that there is going to be a plot to harm the princess, and he just can't have this because he loves her so much. And so he goes on this quest to save his beloved princess. This is a story about the underdog, about doing good things no matter how small you are or how hard they seem. And it is just flat out fantastic. And again, one of my ultimate favorites. So The Tale of Despero by Kate DiCamillo, add it to your list. It was the Newbery Award winner in 2003. One of my more recent favorites is The Crossover by Kwame Alexander. And this book has been widely popular for a wide variety of reasons. Number one, it's a novel in verse, which there are very few of those in the Newbery category. But it's written almost kind of like a rap rather than poetry as we think of it in the educational sense. Typical educational sense, I kind of compare it to like, this is the Hamilton of books before there was a Hamilton of musicals, right? It is engaging and ensnaring those readers who are kind of on the fringe, who don't really want to admit that they like reading or aren't really interested in reading at all. This book, because of its style, will pull readers in. Also because of its content. It's a book about twin brothers and their love of basketball, and then some, school drama and some family drama. It's got so many amazing things wrapped up into it, and Kwame does an amazing job of combining these unusual elements that aren't typically found in kidlit and presenting them in a way that everybody loves. So The Crossover by Kwame Alexander, the Newbery Award winner for 2014, and I've gotten to meet Kwame, which is a real treat in itself. So this is my autographed book. Yay! A few of my other favorite Newbery Award-winning books that I just don't happen to have on my shelves are The New Kid by Jerry Craft. My son is obsessed with it. That's why it's not on my shelf. It's because he's taking it. And also Mercy Suarez Changes Gears by the fabulous Meg Medina. My mom's currently borrowing that one, so I don't have it to share with you. Another one, like way blast from the past, that I super loved is 21 Balloons by William Panay. And there's just tons. Google the list and you'll find something fabulous to read, I promise you. So in addition to the Newbery Award each year, the American Library Association also hands out several Newbery Honor Awards to the runners-up, to the books that were amazing but just didn't quite clinch that gold medal. And on these book covers, you will see silver medals. And there are several given out each year. There's not like a determined number. Sometimes there's 2, sometimes there's 4. And so I want to share with you a few of my favorite Newbery Honor books as well. The first one is Rules. It's written by Cynthia Lord, and I love this book because it is a great way for students and young readers to understand a little bit about the autism spectrum disorder because the main character, Catherine, her brother David, has autism. And if you're struggling to understand that syndrome, or you have a student in your class with that syndrome and you want your students to know more about it, or you're trying to comfort a student who has a sibling or a friend with this syndrome, it's such an amazing story, and I loved it very much. So Rules by Cynthia Lord, a great Newbery Honor book. Another one is Doll Bones by Holly Black. I don't usually like creepy stories, but this was like such a fantastic quest-styled kind of creepy story, and I loved it very much. It's about a group of friends who are growing apart, as we often do in middle school, but come together to try to put this doll, which they believe is possessed, the spirit to rest. And so they go off on this adventure together to make that happen, and it's lovely. It's a lovely story. Another favorite is One Came Home by Amy Timberlake. I was initially drawn to this story because it takes place in my home state of Wisconsin and based around a historical event, but then there is a mystery that happens early on in the book. There is a death and they're having a funeral, and it's the little sister of the woman who has died is certain that the girl in the coffin is not her sister. And she has got to prove it, but no one will believe her. And so she sets out to set things right. And the story is One Came Home. It's a historical novel, and again, fantastic. All right, here it is, just as promised, my favorite award-winning book, this time a Newbery Honor Award-winning book, but a favorite no matter what category we're talking about. It's The War That Saved My Life by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley. And the last one I'm going to share is probably one of my most favorite books I've ever read in my whole life. It is called The War That Saved My Life by the incredible Kimberly Brubaker Bradley. And the story is about a girl named Ada, and Ada has a club foot. She's living in London during the time of World War II, and they are sending the children out of the city to keep them safe. And so Ada's mother is going to send her younger brother Jamie out to the countryside to keep him safe, but she says, you know what, Ada, you are not worth saving, and so you do not get to go. Ava has never left her mother's apartment. Her mother is ashamed of her and her disability, and says, you're not worth saving. You have to stay. And it's just so heartbreaking, but Ada figures out a way to get out of town and to get on the train with her brother Jamie, and they are placed in the home of this woman who is reluctant, is probably the nicest way of saying she does not want these children living in her house for a wide variety of reasons. And then the story unfolds from there. This book is amazing because it touches on some really difficult topics. War, alcoholism, reactive attachment disorder, physical disabilities. All of these things are wrapped up into this story, but they are told so tenderly, so gently, that it is never inappropriate for a middle grade reader. And I'm in awe of Kimberly's talent. And that's why this Newbery Honor book is one of my most favorite books of all time. All right, so there you have it, my favorite Newbery Award-winning books, my ultimate list of all time. I hope that you find something that you enjoy reading and that you enjoy celebrating this amazing time of year when we bring out the best of the best for children's literature. Please subscribe to my channel, Learning with the Word Nerd, so you can stay connected to all of my nerdiness and good things that I have to share for you and your classroom. Happy 2021! Can't wait to see who the new winner is. If you want to grab any of these books for your personal library or your classroom library, there are links for you in the description below. Happy reading!